Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Those of you who have been with us since the beginning, and those of you who have been with this channel even here and there's about, and those of you who have just subscribed, as well as those of you who are contemplating subscription. We thank God for you. You're walking with Mr. Clay. I am Mr. Clay. Yes, and we're in Isaiah chapter 53. Yes, it's an easy chapter. It's just everybody has a difference of opinion or perception. That is all. But the fact is that we'll let Isaiah answer for himself of what he means and let all that just be. And we're in a time where, yes, even now it says that over there, the ancient people of Persia, or should I say the people that now occupy the land which is called Persia, have gotten a great victory. In their perspective, they have a great victory. And we thank the Most High. And to tell you the truth, it has shifted the whole global, should I say hierarchy, or should I say order, the whole global order. And you will hear a lot about that as you follow the crumbs as given by the media, different medias, and it will be pretty good. But nevertheless, let's recite the prayer of Abraham. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have swayed the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me and my seed, that we go not astray henceforth and forever. And that can be found in Jubilees chapter 12 and verse 20. Yes, Isaiah chapter 53. Who has believed our report? Who has believed what we said? And to whom is the arm of the I Am revealed? Now I'm sure the Most High showed you where he mentions the arm of the Most High. I believe it's chapter 48. It says, for he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. He has no form nor comeliness when we shall see him, and there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised, rejected of men, and a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. But he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he had borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. Okay, this person was afflicted, or this people or person. All we like sheep, he says, but he was wounded for our transgressions, and he was bruised for our iniquity, and the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the I Am have laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearer is dumb. So he openeth not his mouth. Now, there are some schools of thought. Now, we have the New Testament, which they call the New Testament, regardless of how it was written or whatever. They attribute this to their Yahushua, Yahusha, and their Jesus and their Yeshua. Even the Muslims, some of them even believe on the same thing, that he is or was the Messiah. But all you have is books, period. You might have some type of account of someone named that name in the Roman archives, but the fact is there were many named that name of Yeshua, Yahushua, or whatever his name was during that time, which has been translated into what they call today Jesus. And so you can quote all the New Testament scriptures a person wants, but that doesn't justify the truth that this is talking about that person. Now, also we have the school of thought where even the true Israelites, or should I say those who know the historical account, where even which comes from Isaiah chapter 45. Chapter 45 says, the narrative of the whole book of Isaiah is about this. Thus saith the I Am to his anointed, to Cyrus. Cyrus is a Christ in himself. And I'm in Isaiah chapter 45. This is my cross-reference here. Whose right hand I have holden. In other words, the Most High have built the Persian Empire up to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two lead gates, and the gates shall not be shut. In other words, these gates are for the children of Jacob. Now, you got in Isaiah, he says, therefore I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. In other words, you're not going to have too many problems out of these people. And I will break in pieces the gates of brass and in sunder of iron, and I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the I Am, which called thee by name, am the God of Israel, for Jacob is my servant. Now, the servant, that school of thought comes from Isaiah chapter 45, where the Jews, when they rejected, according to your New Testament, Jacob is the servant of the Most High. It's just not one man, it's all who he would call within Jacob. Yes, is what he's saying. Now, this is backed up by Scripture in the same context as the Scripture that this is coming out of, which Christians use, or those who believe on this Christ to be God or a Messiah or a demigod, or it's just plain old idolatry. And now the second thing about this whole thing is that the Most High says this. He says now, in chapter 45, he makes himself plain that I'm not talking about any demigod or any son that you attribute unto me. This is what he's saying right here. He says in chapter 45 and verse 6, I'm going to go down to 6, yes. And they that may know that from the rising of the sun and from the west, there is none beside me. In other words, there's no other God. There was no Jesus in the beginning with God. No, there's none beside God. I am that I am. There is none else. I form the light. I create darkness. I make peace. He says I. He didn't say we. And create evil. I, the I Am, do all these things. So there is no, this is the premise of being a true Israelite, period. There is no other God beside the I Am, or Yahuwah, Yahweh, Sanini Nanini. There is no other God, neither does God beget. Even you Muslims know that God says be and it is. Where you get all this other stuff from is hyperbole, or whatever you want to call it. But either way, Israel is despised and rejected of men. Jacob is a man of sorrow, acquainted with grief. And the world have hid their faces from him, and he was despised and he was not esteemed. This has been Jacob's plight from Abraham all the way to Jacob. Yes. Jacob was wounded. Even in the book of Jubilees. And Jasher talks about how Jacob was wounded. And he was bruised for our iniquities, and the chastisement of our peace was upon him. Not that he was a demigod or stood next to the right hand as your Stephen lied and said he saw them, or they written this in there. No. This is just, should I say, parable. Because he has set the example. Jacob was oppressed and he was afflicted, and opened not his mouth. He was dumb as a lamb was slaughtered because of what? His sin. And then he was taken from prison and from judgment. Who shall declare this generation? For he was cut off of the land. In other words, hid into exile. He was in prison in Egypt, in Assyria, in Babylon, and partially in Persia. Made his grave with the wicked, and with the rich his death. But he has done no violence, neither there was any deceit in his mouth. No, Jacob didn't know violence, nor there was any deceit, but this is just the way they treated the children of Israel. You have to stick with the narrative of the scripture, period. He says, now, the I am shall see of the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied by the knowledge of my righteous servant, which Isaiah chapter 45 says the servant was who? Israel. Thy servant shall justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Who? The Levites. And that sounds kind of far-fetched, don't it? But we have to stick with the narrative. We have to stick with the context of this book. This book is about Israel going into captivity, being despised of men, and yet in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah coming out, and many flocking unto Israel because God began to build Israel up. Although no king, Persia was their king. And it happened for a little while until they began to transgress again. Then Grecia became the downfall of all. Grecia was more vile than any one of them. And along with that came the Roman Empire. And now we have this mix-up called the New Testament. And so, he says, yet it pleased God. It pleased God, yes, to chastise him, to bruise him, to put him to grief. Talking about Israel, yes. But his soul being an offering for sin, that's a little far-fetched. No, his body was not an offering for sin. Neither your Yahushua. God doesn't, that goes against the narrative of the Most High. The Levites offer the offering. God did not make, I don't care how many of you try to say this is an original scripture, but back then they could have made the same error. God has an order, and Melchizedek is not an order. Melchizedek was just a priest in Salem. That was it. There was no order. They made that up. Think about it. They made this order of Melchizedek up. Melchizedek was just a priest because of what he did. He held a priestly office because of how he ministered unto the Most High. This is how he did it. Now the appointment and the order was that of the Levites. And they were the only ones that would minister to the Most High, this whole tribe, this whole peoples of Israel. They were the only ones. And I'm not just giving you just what I feel. I'm giving you what the scripture is showing and what God says about himself. The Most High says there's no one beside me in chapter 45 of Isaiah. And then all of a sudden he says that Cyrus was his anointed. Now how this come about here can vividly confuse a person if you do not really understand it. He's not talking about anyone, therefore we should look to the context of the chapter. That's right. And this is why many reject. It wasn't Israel that rejected. He was rejected of men, not of Israel. Israel can't reject itself, but they were rejected of the nations around them. But yet, once they have retained, got back there, went back and led back to the land of Jerusalem to build the temple and restore the land, then other nations start flocking unto Israel in order to join them, including your Ashkenazis, your other people. They were people there too. During the Grecian period, a lot of people have come unto Israel. This is what the Most High is talking about here. And it pleased to see Israel in travail because he had sinned. Therefore, he could be forgiven. Now, according to, in the book of Esther, the children of Persia was talking about what? They said, these people obey a law not like ours. This is when the Most High saw that they have changed. And this is the way of the Most High anyway. The Most High would send you through chastisement, correction of your enemies, or whatever circumstances there is to help you to understand that you have a covenant with the Most High. Yes, you have a covenant with the Most High. And he says, he shall see the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied by his knowledge. Shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Why? Through sacrifice. The Levites. Now, how this is worded is weird, but still, this is what it's talking about. Therefore, I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he has poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and then bear the sin of many that made intercessions for the transgression. Who can make intercessions? The Levites. There's no order of Melchizedek. The order of the Levites. And you can only be born as a Levite. God does not change. If you look out throughout all the scriptures, you will find that the Most High says, these shall you observe throughout your generations. It's for perpetual. The law is perpetual. There is, regardless, even in what you would call the resurrection, the law is still there. So therefore, we have to really be mindful of what is being said. It's very ambiguous, and a person can twist this to mean anything. And who's to say that this thing happened even in the New Testament? For they are just letters based upon this. And this is about the only books, because we have to see that a lot of the books until the Grecian period points towards, should I say, what we call present-day Iran. Back then it was called Persia, which the Most High used to subdue all the enemies of Israel, the captors of Israel. And we have to pay attention to this. Oh man, you just saying this because you're just trying to justify your doctrine. No, I'm not. The fact is, if you would really read it, therefore I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgression, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercessions for the transgressors. You have to realize, what did Israel do once they were freed by the king, the seed line of Cyrus, which you say is Xerxes, but Messiah, the Christ was Cyrus. Oh, whoa, yeah. The Christ was Cyrus at that time. He said, my anointed. Anointed means Christ. Cyrus was even though he do not know him. Go back again to it. Isaiah 45 and read this thing. Understand it. King Cyrus was the Christ of the Most High at that time. During that, he was the one that delivered. Also, the Most High used to deliver Israel and also give them leeway. This was the arm of the Most High, was Cyrus. That was the deliverance. See, Israel's been in captivity and all kind of, hideous things. Even we can take the slave ships and all that stuff, but they were even subdued by many things that have happened to them through the Babylonian Empire. Just by itself tells you what happened to Israel. This is a little cute saying they put up there about the 3 Hebrew young men. It's just the tip of the iceberg of what happened to Israel in Babylon. Yes, just the tip of the iceberg. And then Persia. Have you ever understand why some people hate you for no reason at all? They don't even have a reason. They just don't like you for some reason. And you have not shown them any type of thing whereby they should hate you. And especially if you are a child that's practiced the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, that hatred is spiritual. Yes, this was the hatred that happened, that how many were transferred by ships here to the Americas. Yes, it was the hatred of the Hamites. There was a hatred in them. They knew who were the Israelites. They knew who didn't belong, although they might have been mixed or whatever, they knew. And they were inside, or more deeper inside of the coast of Africa. So that's where they would go and get them and bring them to the shores to be sold and traded for slaves. Many did not do their own people like that. Very few of their own people did they send abroad in ships. But even then, in the land of Ham, Israel was growing. You had, they say, these certain tribes in Nigeria, but then you still had tribes you had a lot of tribes down in, should I say, in different parts, the east, the middle parts, Central Africa. Yes, the Congo. There were many Israelites, and a lot of them were taken from there too. Yes, from the Congo. And there's the coast of the Congo. So the fact is, we have to look at the fact that Jacob was scattered. He was everywhere, and he was still growing. Now he's scattered in few in numbers according to the word of the Most High. But yet this is not about your Isis. Still, the New Testament is false. It stands false. And the events that have happened there are barely much wrong. If for any, you read about the Pizos and how they made up different things as far as the New Testament. And I wouldn't be surprised that these things here were also, some were inserted, but we make sense of what we can. But if we keep those things that the Most High, in other words, I'm just trying to say the law is not passed. And you have to look at the historical account that even though Israel was in captivity, there was no change in no priesthood when they were in the Babylonian captivity. They could not keep the Passover. They could not keep different things. Or should I say the Assyrian captivity. They could not keep these things. They could not even keep them when they were turned captive during the Judges. So where does your Christ come in then? So because the Grecian period come in, then they had to change the priesthood, to the order of Melchizedek. In other words, to have a blasphemous man who says that he was wounded for your transgressions, which was not the case, But in chapter 45 of Isaiah, the Most High names his servant. The Most High names the deliverer, or the Christ that should deliver the people. The Most High names these things. Now you get to Isaiah 53, now it gets to confusion. So there is a dead cat on the line. Because the fact is, and then you have the book of Esther, Nehemiah, and Ezra, way just after the kings. Or should I say before the kings? And just after the kings. But then the prophets come in and you have confusion. Because you have the New Testament on the end. And it could take you for a big flip. But only the Most High can reveal this to those he has elected. That's it. And if we do those things that are pleasing to the Most High, even his laws, statutes, commandments, and ordinances, we will have peace.